Hi, welcome to this tutorial on Windows Communication Foundation. This is my fourth tutorial on WCF. Okay, so if you have not watched my previous tutorials, I would encourage you to watch them so that you will have an idea on what is service-oriented architecture and the development lifecycle. Okay, so in the previous tutorial, we also saw about the first step of a development lifecycle, that is defining a service contract. Okay. Service contract. Okay, so in this tutorial we will see about data contract. Okay, so why we need a data contract and how we can use a data contract and what are the properties that we can, or how we can decorate a data contract. Okay, so in WCF, the transmitting of message from a service to a client. Okay, service to client or from client to service is through SOAP based XML format. Okay, so if my client is having an object and it has to be transmitted to the service, then the object has to be converted to a SOAP based XML format. So the conversion of object to SOAP XML format is called as serialization. Okay, so now my service takes the SOAP XML format, okay, process the request and sends the data in SOAP XML format. But on the receiving end, my client has to convert the SOAP XML value into an object. Okay, so again this process of conversion from SOAP XML to object is called as deserialization. Okay, so the serialization and deserialization process is done automatically is done in different ways. Okay, so one of the way of doing is called the data contract serializer. Okay, so this is a tool which is available in .NET Framework 4.0. Okay, so we can implement the data contract serializer using the tags DataContract and DataMember. So we will see how to use the data contract and DataMember and how to use the properties in the data contract and DataMember. Okay, so I have an example here. Okay, this is my employee service service library, and here I have a iService contract and service implementation. Okay, so in my iService contract I have two methods which is exposed in my service contract, and I have one method which is of return type list and it refers to the data contract. Okay, so now the data contract in WCF are of type class. Okay, class C# classes, whereas we know a service contract is of C# interfaces. Okay, so here in my implementation part I have implemented the add employee, okay, and my get employees. Okay, and I've given default values Darnie, Grace and Sam Daniel. I've given two employee data here. Okay, now in my service contract I've not done any decorations. I've not given it as serialization. Okay, I've not done the serialization using data contract and DataMember. Okay, but by default okay, serialization is done for public properties. Okay, so but serialization is not done for default. Serialization does not apply for private or static properties. Okay, so it does not apply default serialization. Okay, so here I have an example. In my example I've not done any serialization, but by default my WCF is going to do the serialization, but it is going to do the serialization for only public properties. So I have serialization I have two properties which are of type public, my first name and my last name, but whereas my department ID and my address is of type private and it is of type static. Okay, so now I will run this project, and it has self-hosted. Okay, so what I'm interested is in my get employees method, and I invoke the method. Okay, so can you note here in the when I receive the data, okay, the serialization is done. Here you can see in the XML format. Okay, sorry, let me just expand it. Okay, so in my XML format, can you see it has done the serialization only for the public properties, which is first name and last name. Okay, so serialization, default serialization applies only for public properties. Okay, for if it is a data contract serializer. Okay, whereas my private department ID and address is not serialized. Okay, so if I have to serialize even the private properties, then I have to decorate it with data contract. Okay, data contract and data member. So I have a data contract here, and I decorate the private properties as data member. Okay, so this is my data member. Okay, so what I've done here is I've added data member to all the properties here for private, public, and for static. Okay, so even though I explicitly add the data member for static properties, okay, it is not going to serialize it. Okay, and I will just see, I will run this. So I will invoke it. Okay, so all that which has involved in serialization is my department ID, first name and last name. Though I have given the tag for my address as data member, it doesn't involve in serialization because it is of property static. Okay, it is public static. So if it is a static property, we cannot serialize that property. Okay, and once if I give a data contract, if I don't want to serialize a public property, okay, then I remove the data member from that particular property. Okay, so data member is to define whether that particular property has to be serialized or not serialized. Okay, now again I will save all and I will run this application. Okay, so here in my okay, so can you see here it has serialized only my department ID and my last name, though it is of public property, it is of type public. Since I have decorated with data contract, if I don't give data member, then that particular property will not involve in serialization. Okay, so this is called as explicit serialization, wherein I'm explicitly defining which property has to be serialized and which property should not be serialized. Okay, and so explicit serialization can be applied for any access type. It can be applied for private, public, protected. Okay, so the serialization can be done for any access type. Okay, but it does not serialize any static properties. Okay, so having seen what is a data contract, data member, and how to serialize explicitly and how it serialize by default, we will see some of the properties that we can give for a data member and a data contract. Okay, so the first property is the name property. So suppose if I say I don't want the name to be displayed as DEPT ID, but I want to display it as depart. Sorry. Okay. Depart. So I will save all and I will run the application. So I'm explicitly giving a name for my property. Okay, so by default it takes the name here, but when I give a name property, it takes the name as depart. Okay, so can you see here, it has taken the name which I've given. So you can give some meaningful name. The client doesn't know that this is the name which the user which the service has, but I've decorated with this name, so the client has the value as depart. Okay, so in the even in the XML it is described using this particular name. Okay, so can you see even in the XML you have the name that you have given here. So likewise you can decorate with names for all the properties also. Okay, so this is one of the properties, and the second property is if you want to change the order of serialization. Okay, so here you can see in this example, here the order of serialization is in the order which I've given. Say it is department ID, then first name, last name and address. Okay, so what I will do is I will remove the static here. Okay, I will remove the static. So this address is also under serialization. Okay, and what I will do is I will change the order of serialization in such a way that my first name is serialized first, and then last name, and then followed by department ID and then address. So how do I change my order of serialization using the property called order? Okay, so now I will make this order property equal to 3. Okay, I will make it as 2, and then and I will make this order as 0. Okay, so this will be serialized first, and next sorry first name, and then let's give it as 0, and then I give it as 1, and finally I will give the address as 3. Okay, so this is my last name and this is my address. So I've given a meaningful name for all my properties. I've given it as depart, first name, last name and address. My client doesn't know what name has been given, but when it sends the data, it sends with this name. Okay, and even in the XML this name is taken, whatever name I've given in the data member. And now my order of serialization is changed. The first will be the first name and then the last name, and followed by department ID and then my address. Okay, and now I've made all the properties as either public or private, and I've removed the static. Okay, because if I mention it as static, then it cannot be serialized. So now I will run my project, save all and run my project. Okay, so can you see here my order of serialization is changed. First my first name, and then followed by the last name, and then department ID and address. Okay, so thank you for watching this tutorial. I will continue in the next tutorial on how to use other properties like emit default value and is required. Thank you once again.